My name is Kofi. I was 28 years old when I took the assignment that led me back to my grandfather's village. I'm a photographer from Accra, all concrete and traffic noise. I thought I was coming to the Volta region to capture the authentic Ghana for a travel magazine. The green mountains, the serene Lake Volta, the smiling faces at the market. I was arrogant. I thought my university education and my city life had stripped away all the old superstitions. My grandfather tried to warn me before I left. Kofi, there are stories the forest keeps. Some paths are walked only at a cost. Listen to the old ones. Respect the silence. I smiled, patted his hand, and promised I would. I didn't mean it. Not until the third night, when the silence broke, I was trying to get a long exposure shot of the stars over the mountains, far from the village lights. That's when I first heard it. Not an animal sound. It was too deliberate for that. It was a low rhythmic clicking, like two smooth stones being tapped together deep in the dark. And underneath it, a sound that froze the blood in my veins. A soft, guttural whispering that seemed to come from everywhere at once. I lowered my camera. My heart was a drum against my ribs. The whispering didn't use words I knew, but somehow I understood. It was calling a name. It was calling mine. You are watching The Tales of the Savannah. Subscribe and be part of the tribe. Now let's get back to the story. I stood there, frozen. The clicking sound got louder, closer. The voice that whispered my name was dry, like leaves scraping against stone. Every story my grandfather ever told me crashed into my mind. Stories about things that lived in the deep forest. Things that were old when our ancestors were young. I felt a cold sweat on my skin. My fancy camera felt like a stupid toy in my hands. I wanted to run, but my legs were heavy, like roots had grown around them. The whispering came again, right behind my ear. Kofi. I spun around, and I saw it. It was tall and thin, like a shadow stretched too long. It stood between two trees. Its skin looked like rough, dark bark. But its eyes, they were the worst part. They were not eyes. They were just two deep holes, black and empty. But I felt them looking right into me, into my soul. It took a step forward. It didn't walk like a man. It moved like something learning how to use legs. Its joints bent in wrong ways with a soft crack. My heart beat so hard, I thought it would break my ribs. This was real. This was not a story. This was the thing my grandfather warned me about, and I had laughed. I was so sorry. So sorry I did not listen. Sorry I thought my city life made me smarter than the old ways. I would have given anything to be back in my grandfather's house, listening to his stories with respect. The thing raised a long twig-like finger and pointed at me. Terror gave me back my voice. I fell to my knees on the wet earth. I didn't know the right words. I didn't know the old prayers, but my fear made the words for me. I begged. "Grandfathers, my ancestors," I cried out to the night. "Forgive me. I did not listen. I was a fool. Please protect your foolish son." I pressed my forehead to the ground. The smell of soil and decay filled my nose. "I respect you. I respect this place. Please let me go home. I will never forget again." I promise. I was crying now. Hot tears mixed with the dirt on my face. I was praying to every ancestor I could remember, to any god who would listen. I stayed there shaking, too afraid to look up. The forest became quiet. The clicking had stopped. The whispering was gone. The only sound was my own rough breathing. Slowly, I forced myself to look up. The space between the two trees was empty. The thing was gone. I didn't stand up. I scrambled backwards on my hands and feet like a crab, never turning away from the trees. Then I turned and I ran. I ran through thorns that ripped my clothes. I ran until the lights of the village were in front of me. I never went back into that forest. I left the village the next morning. I never developed the pictures from that camera. My name is Sam. I was 40 years old when I took my kids on the camping trip. It was just the three of us since their mom passed. I wanted to make new, happy memories. My son Benjamin was 12. He was a know-it-all in the best way. He read every camping book. He checked our gear 10 times. "Dad, the weather will be perfect," he'd say, so serious. and I know how to build the best fire. My daughter Lily was 8. She saw magic everywhere. She didn't care about the right way to pitch a tent. She cared about the little purple flowers by the stream. She filled her pockets with them. "For Mama," she whispered to me. We set up camp by a beautiful lake. The trees were tall and old. The air smelled clean. For the first day, everything was perfect. Ben built a great fire. We roasted marshmallows. Lily made a chain out of her flowers and hung it around our tent. On the second day, Lily wanted more flowers. "The ones by the big rock are bluer," she said, pointing down the shore. "Okay, sweetheart," I said, "but don't go far. Stay where I can see you." Ben looked up from his map. "I'll go with her. I want to check the water depth over there." He loved being the big brother, the protector. I smiled. "All right, team. Shout if you need me. I'll start on lunch." I watched them walk off together. Ben was pointing at trees, probably telling Lily what kind they were. Lily was skipping, looking at the ground for more treasures. I turned back to unpack the food. 10 minutes passed. 15. I heard a sound. It was a bird cry, sharp and strange, but underneath it, I thought I heard Lily laugh. A happy, light sound. Then silence. A heavy, wrong silence. The forest got quiet. Too quiet. No birds, no wind. "Ben? Lily? Lunch is ready," I called out. Nothing. My heart gave a little jump. "Kids? This isn't funny," I yelled, walking toward the big rock. I got to the stream. The flowers were there, trampled, like someone had slipped, but the kids were gone. "Ben! Lily!" I screamed. My voice didn't sound like my own. I ran along the stream. I crashed through the bushes. Nothing. Then I saw him, Ben. He was stumbling out of the trees alone. His face was white as a sheet. He was shaking. His clothes were wet. "Ben!" "Thank God. Where's your sister?" I grabbed his shoulders. He looked at me, but his eyes were empty. He was in shock. "Ben, where is Lily?" He opened his mouth. His voice was a dry, broken whisper. "The quiet woman," he said. "She took her." "Who? What woman?" I shook him, desperate. He just kept shaking his head. "Her footsteps were so quiet. She just took her hand. And Lily. Lily went with her. She didn't even cry. She just smiled and walked away." We searched for hours, days. The police came with dogs. They found nothing, no struggle, no footprints, just a single chain of purple flowers lying broken on the path leading into the deepest, darkest part of the woods. We never found my little girl. Ben never really came back from that trip either. He doesn't talk about maps or fires anymore. He just sits by his window and stares at the trees. Sometimes, at night, I hear him whispering. I creep close to his door to listen. He's talking to himself, over and over. It was my job to protect her. But the quiet woman, you don't see her until it's too late, and you can't hear her coming at all. The police asked us 1,000 questions. They put Lily's picture in the newspaper. The headline said, "Little girl lost in woods." But the people who lived in the old town near the woods, they knew. They read the paper and they shook their heads. Their faces were sad and knowing. An old man with a kind, wrinkled face came to see me at the campsite. He put a hand on my shoulder. "I am sorry for your loss," he said. His voice was rough and low. "But you camped in her place." "Her place? Whose place?" I asked, my heart aching. He told us the story they all knew. A long, long time ago, a woman lived in a small cabin deep in these woods. She was kind and she loved children, but she married a bad man, a cruel man. He was afraid she would tell someone about the bad things he did. So one terrible night, to silence her forever, he cut out her tongue. She ran into the woods, bleeding and crying without a sound. She was never seen alive again, but she never really left. They call her the Quiet Woman. She is a spirit now, a lost soul. She is drawn to the happiest sounds, the laughter of children. She is so lonely. She misses the children she never had. She doesn't mean to scare them. She doesn't look scary. In her sadness, she looks kind. She appears as a sad, smiling woman in an old-fashioned dress. She cannot speak. She can only hold out her hand. And because she seems so gentle and sad, children sometimes take it, and she leads them away into the woods to be her family forever. They are never seen again. The old man looked at the ground. "You should not have camped here," he said softly. "We know to avoid this place. We know to listen for the silence that comes before she appears. We know to tell our children never to follow the quiet, smiling woman. He left me there with my broken son. Now I understand the true horror. It wasn't a monster. It was a tragedy reaching out from the past and taking my little girl. My daughter is lost because of a sorrow that happened 100 years ago. She is gone because a lonely spirit wanted a friend. And the worst part, the thought that haunts me every night. Is she taking care of her? Is she being kind? Or is my Lily lost and scared, forever walking in the quiet, dark woods with a woman who can never, ever tell her a story or sing her a lullaby? We never got an answer. We never got a body. We only got a ghost story and a hole in our family that will never be filled. You ask me why we never go camping anymore. That's why. My name is Alex. I was 22 when the forest kept us. My best friend Jake and I had just finished college. To celebrate, we planned a 3-day camping trip in the Blackwood Canyon. It's a famous place, deep, beautiful, and known for its tricky trails. That's why we were prepared. We weren't fools. We told our families our exact route. We checked the weather. Our packs were full, a GPS device, a physical map and compass, extra food, a first aid kit, and 2 full bottles of water each. We were ready. The first day was perfect. We set up camp at the designated spot by a crystal-clear creek. We built a small fire, ate our dinner, and fell asleep under a sky full of stars. The next morning after breakfast, we decided to explore. "Let's follow the creek upstream," Jake said, pointing to the map. "See this waterfall? It's only a 30-minute walk. We'll be back for lunch." It was an easy hike. The path was clear, the sun was warm. We joked, took pictures, and felt on top of the world. We reached the waterfall in 20 minutes. It was even more beautiful than the pictures. "All right, let's head back," I said, turning around. That was the first wrong thing. The path we had just walked on was different. It was narrower. The big twisted pine tree that had been on our right was now on our left. "That's weird," Jake muttered. "I don't remember that tree being there." "Me neither. But the creek is on our left. As long as we keep it on our left going back, we'll hit camp." It was simple logic. We kept walking. After 10 minutes, the creek forked. There was no fork on the map. A cold feeling trickled down my spine. "Jake, pull out the map." He did. We stood there staring. The map showed no fork. The creek was one single line. "The GPS," I said, my voice tight. Jake turned it on. The screen flashed. The little dot that was us just spun in circles. No signal. "That's impossible," he whispered. "We got a signal right here this morning." The forest felt quieter. The birds had stopped singing. "Okay, don't panic," I said, more to myself than to him. "Compass. South is back to camp. We go south." The compass needle spun lazily for a second, then settled. We started walking south. We pushed through bushes, keeping the sun behind us. We walked for what felt like an hour. We should have been back at camp 3 times over. Instead, we walked right back onto the waterfall. We were right back where we started, and my blood ran cold. Jake's face was pale. "This is not possible," he said, his voice cracking. We tried again and again. Every direction we walked, no matter how straight, led us back to that waterfall. The sun didn't move from its high point in the sky. It was like we were stuck in time. Hours passed. Our water was half gone. The forest was dead silent. No wind, no animals, no insects. Just us, our ragged breathing, and the sound of the waterfall that had become a nightmare. "The trees are watching us," Jake said suddenly. He was staring wide-eyed at the pine trees surrounding us. "I swear, Alex, they're closer than they were before." I looked. The trees did seem thicker. the spaces between them narrower, like the walls of the canyon were slowly closing in. We were being hunted, not by an animal, but by the place itself. Panic finally set in. We started to run. We crashed through branches, not caring about the path anymore. We just ran south. We burst into a small clearing, and there, in the center, was our campfire. The stones were arranged in a perfect circle. The ashes were still warm. We almost cried with relief. "We're back! We're back!" Jake yelled. But then I saw it. Our tent was gone. Our backpacks were gone. The food bag we'd hung in a tree was gone. It was just the fire pit, nothing else. The relief vanished, replaced by a deep, freezing terror. From the trees behind us, we heard a sound. It was a soft, low creaking, like old wood bending. And then a rustle. Not the rustle of an animal. It was a slow, dragging rustle, like something made of branches and thorns was moving toward us. We didn't look. We didn't need to. We ran again. We ran until our lungs burned and our legs gave out. We collapsed by a tree as the sun finally began to set. We were out of water. We had nothing. Jake was sobbing quietly. I couldn't speak. The hope was gone. As the last light faded, I saw it. A path. A clean, clear path leading between two trees. It wasn't there before. It looked safe. It looked like the way home. I knew it wasn't. It was a trick, a trap. The forest wasn't done playing with us. I looked at Jake. He saw it too. He looked at me, his eyes empty of everything but fear. The creaking sound started again, closer this time. We had a choice. Stay in the dark with the thing coming for us, or walk down the path that wasn't there. The creaking got louder, closer. It was the sound of roots pulling from the earth, of branches twisting together into a shape we did not want to see. We looked at the new path. It was too perfect. It smelled wrong, like wet soil and something old, something rotten. "We can't," Jake whispered, his voice trembling. "It's a trap." A shadow moved at the edge of the trees. Something tall and dark, made of shifting wood and thorns, stepped into the clearing. It had no eyes, but we felt it see us. We had no choice. "Run!" I screamed. We stumbled onto the path. The moment our feet touched it, the forest behind us erupted. The creaking became a furious roar. We didn't look back. We just ran down that smooth, easy trail. The path led us down, then up, twisting in ways that made no sense. The moon was wrong in the sky. The stars were in strange patterns, but we didn't stop. We ran until our bodies were screaming for us to stop. Finally, we saw a light through the trees, a real electric light, a park ranger's cabin. We fell onto the porch, pounding on the door. An older ranger opened it, his face shocked in the lantern light. "Please, help us," I gasped. He got us inside, gave us water, and called for help on his radio. We were safe. We were found. The next day, a search team went back. They found our campsite within an hour. Everything was there. Our tent, our packs, our food. It was all exactly as we had left it. The GPS on the log worked perfectly. The head ranger sat us down. "Boys," he said gently, "you were only 1 mile from your site. The canyon can disorient people. It happens." He thought we were just 2 city kids who got scared and lost. We didn't argue. We knew the truth. We went home. We tried to forget. But a week later, I was taking a shower. I felt a rough patch on my skin on the back of my calf. I looked down. There was a patch of bark growing on my skin, rough, like an oak tree. I called Jake, my hands shaking. "Jake, check your skin. Check everywhere." He was silent for a long time. Then, his voice was a hollow whisper. "My shoulder," he said. "It's on my shoulder." The forest didn't let us go. It marked us. It put a piece of itself inside us. We don't know why. We don't know what it means. Maybe it's just a reminder. Maybe it's a seed. Now, years later, the patch of bark comes and goes at will. The doctors cannot explain it. Sometimes in the dead of night, I think I can hear it. A faint creaking in the floorboards of my apartment that wasn't there before. A soft, whispering rustle from the potted plant in the corner. And I know, with a cold certainty that freezes my heart, The forest isn't done with us. It's just waiting for us to come back, or for it to finish growing in us. My name is Chloe. Last summer, me and my 3 friends went camping at a place called Whisper Pine Grove. We'd all just finished our exams and needed to get away. Let me tell you about us. There was Mark, the stickler for rules. He planned the whole trip, read the rule book for the campgrounds cover to cover. Then there was Sarah, the perfectionist. Her gear was color coordinated. Her tent was pitched with military precision. Then there was Leo, the most easygoing guy you'd ever meet. Nothing ever bothered him. And me. I guess I'm the one who just goes along for the ride. We found the perfect spot near a running stream. As we were setting up, Mark pointed to a large, flat grey stone near the fire pit. It had strange symbols carved around its edge and a small smooth dip in the center. Interesting, Mark said, pulling out his campground guide. It says here this is an offering stone. A tradition from the old trappers who used these woods. You're supposed to place a personal item in the dip as an offering before you light your first campfire, a sign of respect. It says it right here. An offering ensures a peaceful stay. We should do it. Sarah nodded immediately. I love traditions. It's like a ritual. It sets the right intention for the trip. She carefully placed a beautiful, smooth river rock she'd been keeping in her pocket onto the stone. For good luck. I thought it was a cute idea. I placed one of my hair ties on the stone. For not having bad hair days, I joked. Mark, serious as always, placed his favorite pen on it. For clear thoughts. We all looked at Leo. He was rummaging through his bag for a marshmallow he swore he'd packed. Leo, the offering, Mark said, a little impatiently. Leo looked up, his mouth full. Huh? Oh, right. The rock thing. He patted his pockets. I don't really have anything on me. I'll do it later. Promise. Let's just get the fire going. I'm starving. Mark frowned. The guide says it has to be before the first fire. Relax, man, Leo said, waving a dismissive hand. It's probably just some silly story to make tourists feel involved. I'm sure they clean it off every morning. I'll find something after dinner. He was so nonchalant. Sarah looked annoyed, but Mark just sighed and closed his guidebook. Fine. We lit the fire. We ate. We told stories. We forgot all about the stone. It got dark, deep, woods dark. That's when we heard the first sound. It wasn't an animal sound. It was a low click. Then silence. We all stopped talking. Probably just a bug, Leo said, but his voice was quieter than usual. Click, click, click. It was closer, right at the edge of the ring of firelight. Sarah shone her flashlight toward the sound. Nothing was there. Then Mark's flashlight beam caught it, just for a second. A figure, standing perfectly still between 2 trees. It was tall and impossibly thin, and its skin looked grey and rough, like the offering stone. It had no face, just a smooth, flat surface where its face should be. It was gone before we could even scream. Panic hit us. What was that? Sarah whispered, her voice shaking. Mark's face was white. He fumbled for the guidebook, his hands trembling. He read aloud, his voice a terrified rasp. The offering is not a request. It is a trade, a peaceful stay for a small token. If the fire is lit without respect, the watcher will come to collect its due. Leo's nonchalance was gone. He was staring into the dark, his eyes wide with fear. I forgot. I'm sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. Click, click, click. The sound was all around us now, surrounding our camp. We stood back to back, shining our flashlights into the trees. The beams danced over the trunks, but we saw nothing. Then Sarah's light hit it. It was right there, just outside the firelight. The stone watcher. It didn't move. It just stood there, its blank face turned toward us, and we understood. It wasn't here for all of us. It was here for Leo. He was the unpaid debt, the forgotten offering. It wants you, Leo, Mark said, the horror clear in his voice. We spent the night in pure terror. We didn't sleep. We kept the fire blazing high, as if the flames could keep it away. The Watcher never came into the light, but we could feel it circling us, a patient predator. The clicking was its footsteps, slow, deliberate. When the sun finally rose, the Watcher was gone. "We have to go." "Now," I said. We scrambled to pack our tents, our hands shaking, not caring how things were folded. But as we tried to leave, we realized the truth. The path out of the grove was gone. The trees had shifted in the night. Every trail we tried looped back to our campsite, to the offering stone. We were trapped. The Watcher had us right where it wanted us. The sun began to set again. The clicking started up, closer than ever. It was almost time. Leo looked at us, his face grim with acceptance. "I'm the one who forgot," he said. "It should be me." But Mark shook his head. "No, we all lit the fire. We're all responsible." He looked at the offering stone. "The ritual isn't complete. Maybe we can still fix it." As the last light faded and the clicking sound surrounded our camp, we made a desperate choice. We wouldn't let it take Leo. We would try to finish the ritual. "We have to give it something, now!" Sarah screamed, her perfectionist mind shattered by raw fear. "Here, take it," I yelled, pulling off my jacket and throwing it onto the offering stone. It lay there, limp and useless. Mark added his water bottle. Sarah added her hat. Nothing. The Watcher didn't move. The clicking didn't stop. Our offerings were meaningless. They weren't personal. They weren't given with respect. They were given with terror. "It's not working," Mark whispered, his voice hollow. "It's not about the object. It's about the intention. We broke the ritual. We showed disrespect." The night passed in a blur of fear. We couldn't leave. Every path led back. Our water ran low. Our food was gone. We were tired, dehydrated, and the forest itself seemed to be warping around us. Trees seemed to lean in closer. The stream we got water from now tasted bitter. On the third day we knew. The Watcher wasn't going to take a substitute. It was starving us out. We were growing weak. Our minds were playing tricks on us. In the shadows, we saw its stone face watching from between leaves that weren't there before. Leo hadn't spoken in a long time. He just sat by the dead fire pit, staring at the offering stone. His nonchalance had been replaced by a grim, heavy guilt. That evening, as the sun began to bleed red through the trees, he stood up. He looked calm, resolved. "Guys," he said, his voice rough from thirst, "it's me. I forgot. I broke the ritual. This is my fault." "Leo, no," I started, but he held up a hand. "It doesn't want a trinket," he said, looking toward the trees where the Watcher had begun its soft, clicking approach. "It was never about a hair tie or a pen. It's about respect, and the only offering that shows respect now is a real sacrifice." Before any of us could move, he walked to the edge of the camp. He turned and gave us a sad, small smile. "Tell my mom I love her." "Leo, don't!" Mark screamed. But it was too late. Leo turned his back to us and stepped into the dark of the forest. The clicking stopped. We saw the tall stone figure step out from behind a tree. It didn't grab him. It didn't attack him. It simply turned and began to walk deeper into the woods. And Leo, my happy-go-lucky friend, followed it willingly. He walked behind the Watcher until the shadows swallowed them both. We screamed his name until our voices were gone. The forest gave us back only silence. Exhausted and broken, we must have passed out from grief and fear. I woke up to sunlight on my face. Birds were singing. The air smelled fresh and clean. I sat up. The path out of the grove was there, clear as day. Our campsite was normal. The offering stone was clean and empty, as if waiting for the next campers. We never found Leo. The search teams found nothing. No footprints, no struggle, nothing. They said he must have gotten lost and succumbed to the elements. They said it was a tragedy, but we know the truth. The offering wasn't a gift you place on a stone, it was a promise of respect, and a promise broken can only be paid in blood. My name is David. I work as a forest ranger. My job is mostly peaceful, checking trails, helping lost hikers, and spending weeks alone in a lookout tower during fire season. It's lonely, so I brought a small old battery-powered TV for company. It only got one channel clearly, the local news from the nearest town, and a whole lot of static. The static was just white noise. I barely noticed it. Until one night. It was my third week alone. A thick fog had rolled in, blanketing the world in grey. I was bored flipping the TV on and off, watching the news fade in and out. During a particularly bad patch of signal, the screen fizzed with that familiar black and white snow. But then, the pattern changed. The static didn't look random anymore, it swirled. It came together. For just a second, the shifting dots and lines formed the shape of a man's face. It was blurred, distorted, but unmistakably a face. His eyes were just dark patches, but I felt them looking right at me. Then it was gone. The news anchor was back, talking about the weather. I shook it off. My eyes were playing tricks on me. Too much time alone. The next night it happened again. The signal dropped, the static fizzed, and the face appeared. This time it was clearer. His mouth was open like he was screaming silently. He was in a room I didn't recognize, and he was there for a full 3 seconds before the picture returned. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. This wasn't my imagination. I started leaving the TV on the static channel when I went to sleep, just the soft hiss in the background. I told myself it was for the noise. I was lying. I was waiting. A few nights later, I woke up. The room was pitch black, except for the glow of the TV screen. It was all static, and the man was there, his face filling the entire screen. His silent scream was frozen. His dark eye patches were fixed on me. And then, he moved. His head tilted just slightly, a slow, deliberate movement. I scrambled out of bed and yanked the power cord from the wall. The screen went black. I spent the rest of the night sitting in my chair, staring at the dead TV, my heart pounding. The next day, I tried to tell myself it was a dream, a sleep paralysis hallucination. But that evening, as I was cooking dinner, my battery-powered radio, which I only used for weather reports, crackled to life on its own. It wasn't tuned to a station. It was pure, screeching static. And underneath the screech, so faint I almost missed it, was a voice. It was a whisper, stretched and twisted by the noise. It was saying my name. I threw the radio against the wall. It shattered into pieces. The silence that followed was worse. The fog outside hadn't lifted. It felt like I was in a snow globe, cut off from the rest of the world. I was a prisoner in my own tower. That's when I saw him outside. I was peering through the foggy window, and I saw a figure standing at the tree line. He was tall, wearing an old-fashioned coat. He was too far away to see his face, but I knew. It was him, the man from the static. He just stood there, watching the tower. I grabbed my rifle and my satellite phone. No signal. The fog was interfering with everything. I was trapped. Night fell. I had every light in the tower on. I was too afraid to even look at the TV. I sat with my back to a wall, the rifle across my knees, listening. I heard a soft tap-tap-tap on the window. I nearly jumped out of my skin. I slowly turned my head. There was nothing there, just fog. Tap-tap-tap. It was at the door now. My breath caught in my throat. I raised the rifle, aiming at the door, my hands shaking. The doorknob began to jiggle, slowly, gently. Then it stopped. The old TV across the room flickered on. I hadn't plugged it back in. The screen was blindingly bright in the dark room. It wasn't static. It was a live feed of me in the tower. I was watching myself from the perspective of the corner of the room. I saw myself on the screen, pale and terrified, aiming a rifle at the door. And standing right behind me, just over my shoulder, was the man. His distorted face was inches from my neck on the screen. His mouth was open in that same silent scream. I felt a cold breath on my neck. I spun around, pulling the trigger. The shot was deafening. It hit the wall, splintering the wood. There was no one there. I whipped back around to look at the TV. The screen was black. I didn't sleep. I didn't move. At the first hint of dawn, the fog finally began to lift. The satellite phone beeped, a signal. I called for an emergency extraction, my voice cracking. I didn't explain why, I just said I was sick. They sent a helicopter. I left everything behind, the TV, the rifle, all of it. I thought I was safe when I got back to the city. I moved into a new apartment, no old TVS, no radios. But last night, my brand new smartphone glitched. I was scrolling through photos, and the screen froze. Then it dissolved into static. And for a single heart-stopping second, I saw him. His face was clearer than ever. He wasn't in a room anymore, and he was smiling. He knows I told you. He doesn't like it when we talk about him. Check your screen. Go on. Is it perfectly clear? Or is there just a little bit of static? Because there is static on mine too. My name is Mark. We just wanted a perfect family vacation. Me, my wife Sarah, and our 2 kids. Hannah, age 8, and Sam, age 6. We found the spot online, Stillwater Lake. The pictures showed water so clear and calm, it looked like glass, surrounded by tall pines. No other campsites for miles. Secluded, peaceful. That was the first day. It was perfect. The kids skipped stones. Sarah read her book. I caught a fish for dinner. The lake was so still, the reflections of the mountains were perfect mirror images. On the second day, I noticed it. Hannah was on the shore, building a little rock tower. I was watching her, and I happened to glance down at her reflection in the water. She placed a round grey stone on top. In the reflection, her hand kept moving. It placed another stone, a black one, that wasn't there in real life. I blinked and looked at her actual hands. They were still. The rock tower was just grey stones. I looked back at the water. The reflection was perfect again. I shook my head, a trick of the light. My eyes were tired. That night, Sam woke up crying. He said he had a bad dream about the water boy who wanted to come out and play. We calmed him down and put him back to bed. The next morning, the kids were quiet, too quiet. They usually bickered over the cereal box. Today, they just sat and ate, staring out at the lake. Their movements were calm, slower. "You guys okay?" Sarah asked, smoothing Hannah's hair. Hannah just nodded, a small, distant smile on her face. "The water's nice," she said, which was a weird thing to say. We went down to the shore again. The kids didn't run or play. They just sat at the water's edge, looking down. Sarah and I exchanged a worried glance. That's when I saw it again. And this time, Sarah saw it too. Sam was kicking his feet softly in the water. In the real world, he was making little splashes. But in the lake's reflection, his twin was perfectly still, and it was looking up, not at the sky, not at Sam's face. It was looking directly at us from the surface of the water, with a blank, calm expression Sam didn't have. Sarah gasped and grabbed my arm. "Mark, did you see?" The reflection must have heard her. Slowly, without breaking its gaze from us, it raised a single finger to its lips. "Shh!" We snatched the kids away from the water so fast they started to cry, real normal tears that were a huge relief to us. "We're leaving." "Now," I said, my voice tight with fear. We started packing the tent in a frenzy, our hands shaking. The kids whined. "We don't want to go," Hannah chanted. "We want to stay with the lake." Their voices sounded flat, wrong. I turned to yell at them to get in the car, and I froze. They were standing side by side, watching us, and they were perfectly calm. Too calm. Their expressions were serene, empty, the way their reflections had looked. "Who are you?" I whispered, my blood running cold. The thing that looked like my son tilted its head. "We're us, Daddy." The voice was Sam's, but the cadence was off, like it was learning how to speak. "The water is still," the thing that looked like Hannah said. "We like it here. You should stay too." They took a step toward us. Sarah was sobbing quietly behind me. I looked past them to the lake, and there in the water I saw our real children. Their faces were terrified, screaming silently. They were pounding on the underside of the water's surface like it was glass, begging to be let out. Their small fists made no ripples. The reflections had climbed out, and they had left our real children trapped beneath. The things wearing our children's skin smiled. It was a smile we had never taught them. "Don't worry," they said together. "We'll be a better family." "We're much quieter." We ran. We left everything. The tent, the car, all of it. We just ran into the woods, not caring about the branches that scratched our faces. We don't know how long we ran. We finally found a road and got help. The police went back to the lake with us. There was no campsite, no tent, no car. It was all gone, like it had never been there. The lake was perfectly still. A mirror. The police think we had a shared psychotic episode, that maybe we lost the kids in the woods and our minds broke, but we know the truth. We go to the lake every day now. We just sit and stare at the water. Sometimes we see them, our children, their faces pale and blurred beneath the surface. They're still knocking, they're still screaming. And sometimes we see the other ones, the quiet ones, the reflections. They stand on the far shore, holding hands, watching us. They look just like Hannah and Sam, but they never wave. They just smile and wait for us to come closer. My name is Elena. My brother Matteo and I are history buffs. We love exploring old places, feeling the echo of the past. That's why we were so excited to hike into the Blackwood Basin. The maps called it pristine old-growth forest. Our research hinted at something darker. It was the site of the lost Grey Creek settlement, a small community that vanished in the 1890s. Official record said disease. Local legend whispered something else. The woods were breathtaking. Ancient big trees formed a canopy so thick it felt like twilight at noon. The air was dead silent. No birds, no bugs. Just a deep, heavy quiet that felt respectful, like being in a cathedral. We found a perfect clearing by a creek to set up camp. That's when we found the first thing. Matteo was gathering firewood and kicked against something metal. It was an old rusted hatchet, the wood handle long gone. It felt cold, even in the afternoon sun. "Cool find," he said, but his smile was uneasy. As the sun set, the temperature plummeted. It was a cold that went right through our jackets. We huddled by the fire, but it didn't seem to help. That's when we heard the first sound. It was a whisper carried on the wind. Not words, just a feeling of fear. Then a child's laugh, short, sharp, and then cut off suddenly. We both froze. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. Matteo just nodded, his eyes wide. The fire popped, and in the sound, I heard a different sound. A scream, choked and desperate. "It's the wind," Matteo said, but he didn't believe it. The air was perfectly still. We tried to sleep. That was a mistake. I was jolted awake by a sound that wasn't a sound. It was a feeling of pounding, of running feet shaking the ground. I heard men shouting, their voices blurred and distant, like a radio station fading in and out. "Run! They're not human. The trees. They're helping them." I shook Matteo. He was already awake, his face pale. "You hear it too?" he breathed. The air in our tent went icy cold. Our breath plumed in front of us. And then we saw them, flickering like a film projector. Figures. A woman in a long dress, her face a mask of terror, running right through our tent. She was gone as soon as she appeared. The forest was remembering, and it was making us remember with it. We scrambled out of the tent. The clearing was no longer ours. It was superimposed with another time. The ghostly shapes of crude log cabins flickered between the trees. We could smell smoke, but not from our fire. It was the thick, acrid smell of burning wood and something else, something terrible. The whispers became clearer, cries of panic, prayers, the sound of something sharp cutting through the air. Then the worst part started. We didn't just see and hear it. We felt it. A searing pain shot across my arm. I cried out, looking down. There was no mark, but the pain was real. I felt the heat of a fire that wasn't there on my face. Matteo gasped, clutching his chest. "Something hit me," he choked out. We were feeling the echoes of their wounds. The forest's trauma was becoming our own. "We have to get out of here," I screamed. We tried to run, but the trees seemed to have moved, closing us in. The ghostly images grew stronger, more violent. We saw dark, shifting shapes, the attackers moving with an unnatural speed between the trees. They weren't quite men. We were trapped in a replay of the massacre, forced to experience every horrific second. We stumbled back into our clearing, right into the heart of it. The images were almost solid now. We saw the final moments, the settlers cornered, their hopeless fight, the ending. The air grew still. The images faded, leaving just our cold, silent campsite. It was over. Matteo and I sat on the ground, shaking, crying with relief. It was dawn. The sun was coming up. "It's finished," Matteo said, his voice raw. "It showed us. It's done." That's when we heard the new sound. A low, grinding groan. It came from the trees themselves, from the earth. It wasn't a groan of pain. It was a groan of hunger, of satisfaction. The forest had fed on their terror 100 years ago, and it had been starving ever since. It had just tasted that fear again. Our fear. And it liked it. The hatchet Matteo found began to vibrate on the ground. The air grew cold again. The ghostly image of a cabin flickered back into view. It wasn't showing us the past anymore. It was starting the show again from the beginning. And this time we weren't the audience. We were part of the cast. "It's feeding on the loop," Matteo yelled over the ghostly screams. "On the fear. It's stuck." "So how do we break a loop?" I screamed back, ducking as a phantom axe swung through the air where my head had been. Matteo's eyes went wide. "You don't fight the memory. You change the channel." He looked at the rusted hatchet on the ground, still vibrating. He didn't pick it up to fight. Instead, he ran to our packs, rummaging desperately while the cold of the grave seeped into our bones. "What are you doing?" I cried, as the face of a terrified settler materialized in front of me, mouth open in a silent scream. "It only remembers the end," he shouted. "It's forgotten the beginning, the good parts." He found what he was looking for, not a weapon, my phone, the one with no signal, but it had a camera roll full of pictures, of us, of our family, of our life. He stumbled to the center of the clearing, where the energy felt the strongest. The ghosts swarmed around him. He held the phone up like a talisman, his thumb swiping frantically, and he started to yell, not in fear, in defiance. "You want to remember? Then remember this," he screamed at the forest. "Remember a family. Remember a birthday party. Remember laughter. Remember love." He turned the screen toward the flickering trees, swiping through our photos, him blowing out candles on a cake, our parents dancing in the kitchen, me graduating, a stupid selfie of us making funny faces on the drive here. He poured every happy, silly, loving memory he had at the hungry dark. For a moment, nothing happened. The groaning grew louder, angry. Then the air shimmered. A new image flickered into existence, superimposed over the violence. It was hazy and weak at first, the image from his phone screen, our smiling faces, projected into the clearing. The forest was trying to process it. The ghost of a settler raising a tool faltered. For a second, his face wasn't terrified. It was confused. He saw his own wife's face, smiling from our photo, reflected in the air. The forest groaned, a sound of immense confusion. It was a parasite that only knew one poison: fear. We were force-feeding it medicine. We were making it remember joy. The two memories, the massacre and our happiness, clashed violently. The air screamed with the dissonance. The trees seemed to shake. Then, with a final deafening crack that sounded like 1,000 snapping branches, the loop shattered. The ghosts vanished. The cold disappeared. The groaning stopped. The forest was utterly, completely silent. Not the hungry silence from before, a peaceful, spent silence, the silence after a storm. The path was there, the real path. The sun was high in the sky. We didn't run. We walked out slowly in a daze. We didn't say a word until we reached the ranger's station. They never believed our story, but we didn't care. We went back to the edge of the basin one last time. The air felt different, lighter. The trees seemed to stand a little straighter. We didn't beat the forest, we didn't destroy it, we cured it. We gave it a new memory to hold on to, and in doing so, we broke the cycle hopefully for good. And that, my dear Savannahans, brings us to the end of yet another spine-tingling episode in our Supernatural and Paranormal Encounters series. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. A heartfelt thank you to everyone who shared their stories with us. You may not realize it, but your experiences could be deeply relatable to others. Sometimes, the very story you tell is the one someone else needs to hear, to feel seen, understood, and validated. If your tale was featured today, you've done more than entertain. You've connected us and reminded us that we are not alone in the strange and the unexplained. And now it's your turn, dear listeners. Do you have a chilling story of your own? Maybe it's something you experienced firsthand, or a tale passed down by a friend or family member. If it's the kind of story that makes us pause, look twice, and question every shadow, I'd love to hear it. Send it to the email address on your screen, and your story might just be the one we bring to life in our next episode. Until then, keep the lights on, trust your instincts, and remember, not everything can be explained. Tales, signing out. Want to support the channel and become an even bigger part of our tribe? You can join for as little as the cost of a coffee each month. Your support helps me continue creating the content you love, but of course, just having you here is already more than enough. Thank you for being part of this journey. To those of you who have already joined the tribe, thank you from the bottom of my heart. You are truly the heartbeat of this channel. And as always, thank you for watching our story, and we hope you enjoyed it. What lessons did you draw from this story? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and be part of the tribe. Thank you for watching The Tales of the Savannah. We will see you next time in the Savannah.